Greetings Guardians, my name is Bife here. So I said the raid lore videos were done, and yet today I'm covering the raid lorebook. Well, why is that? Well, it's because the raid lorebook is actually really weird in the sense that it doesn't tell you that much about the raid itself. The raid lorebook in this instance mentions Nezarec a grand total of once. The raid lorebook instead focuses on a much wider series of perspectives that all relate to the darkness or the witness. Therefore, whilst the lorebook has nothing to do with the raid, it has everything to do with the future. I've already covered some bits and pieces of it. In the Veil video, we talked about the passage that comes from the perspective of the Sol Divisive, and the Unknown Disciple video talked about the passage from the perspective of, well, an unknown disciple. In these next few videos, however, I'm going to talk about some of the other entries into the Inspiral lorebook, and we're starting today with a character that is bound to matter in the future. Mara Sov. Mara Sov's entry into the Inspiral lorebook tells us a lot more about the witness than it does about the darkness. Before we say any more though, let's actually go ahead and read it. It appears rather late in the lorebook as the 7th out of 10 entries, and it is titled Irei. It reads as follows. A waking dream that appears by night, singing slyly like starlight. It leaves behind a crystallized data fragment to mark its passing. I am diminished. I know this. It behooves a queen to be honest with herself, even if such truths are hidden from advisors and subjects. Leaving the distributary was not a mistake, and in fact was the only possibility, for the expanding wake of the collapse must someday find that safe haven too. But there are days I regret. Celestial bodies still spin, most of them. I touched the mind, the being of that terrible distant force but once, and it was more than sufficient. Even I, awoken and queen, strength of my people felt inextricably mortal in that moment. I have stared into hard vacuum with nothing but my will to keep the breath in my lungs, and never feared a moment. This? It disquiets me. I should not be afraid. I must not embrace fear, so I turn it over again and again, picking through the pieces of that one fragmented impression for something more. To look at my own weakness time after time, to understand something, is to drain the killing fear out of it. That which is known can be disassembled. There was a version of me that was grateful. No. Yet the more I analyze, the more I ponder, the less I understand. A cacophony, an overwhelming weight of presence and thought and intent. A person, but not a person, more than that. Imagine if that first place where the Awoken had came to be had been nothing but screaming chaos. In the noise, in the oppressive weight, I learn pieces as delicate as spiderwebs, as scattered as stars. I lay them out along each other in my thoughts. Here is purpose. Not a singular thesis, but the idea of purpose. Vicious and brilliant and driven as I ever was. Here is a shape. I see it as a sharpness, like a starless cutout against a distant galaxy. Made clear in the negative space. The thoughts of the hive, I might guess, but it is not quite the same. Purpose and sharpness are discrete from each other here. Darkness and the sword. No, darkness but the sword. Here is a stillness. I breathe and it shatters, but the idea of that perfect, quiet ending remains, lingers into dreams. I think sometimes, if I dream long enough, I will understand this witness better. The voice, not of the darkness, yet in it. But I do not have the time to spend dreaming, to understand this listless scavenger that claws through our worlds and cherishes the destruction it leaves as transcendent. Risky as all valuable things are. I know one other thing from the witness, garnered in those bare moments I touched it. Not a why or a how. No home or treasures to point at weakness. Only this. Beneath all else, that being cradles rage enough to burn the stars themselves to cinders. So, here's a question. When did Mara Sov touch the mind of the witness? I believe I know the moment, and whilst we can't be sure for certain, lots of bits and pieces of it line up. First of all, the moment is spoken of a little bit more in The Witch Queen, and in particular, in the Of Worms and Queens quest, which gives us the following line of dialogue from Mara.
Mara, not to be harsh, but what's going on with you?
Before coming to you, I sought information about the voice in the dark, the witness. What I found? Well, you could say I was granted a personal viewing of our impending doom at the hands of the witness. Its poisons piercing my mind and thoughts. I didn't know what to do. I had no plan. I was afraid. I remain haunted, unsure of the next move. But it must be made, regardless.
I believe that this moment was displayed in the Witch Queen Collector's Edition lore. It's a report from Fenchurch Everis, who took notes on the findings and adventures of Eris Morn. Eris and Queen Mara travelled to the 10th major celestial body from the Sun, which is also known as Eris. This is the full report from Fenchurch. Hidden identifier numbers here are used consistently throughout to indicate characters. For everyone's convenience, I'm going to use people's real names instead of identifier numbers, such as VIP number 2015 or VIP 0704. Frankly, that's something that we don't need in order to bring less confusion about. The report that speaks on the moment when Mara made contact with the witness reads as follows. 1. Fenchurch and Neville reporting in. I've finally been able to sit Eris down for a few moments and ask her about the vision I experienced on Luna. See my affidavit regarding number 12059. In short, I saw Mara tending to Eris's wounds in the wreckage of a destroyed vessel. This was prior to the discovery of the pyramid on Luna. I now believe the wreckage was from a ship of the same type, one of the intruders that presaged the disappearance of Mars, Io, Titan, and Mercury. 2. Eris was reticent to discuss whether the event in my vision had actually occurred. I expressed my frustration with her evasiveness given the distance I had travelled and my well-established loyalties. Eris invoked the threat of Savathun as a reason to favour secrecy. I asked whether she had been too much influenced by Mara Sov's habits of distrust. She did not reply. As a social gesture, I offered to share my pineapple fried rice, which caused her tremendous distress. After collecting the remnants of the meal, I left. 3. Later that day, Eris approached me to apologize and attempted the conversation again. I was moved and allowed her to open the topic on her own terms. After an elliptical conversation regarding the emotional burden of her role as a constant harbinger of worse to come, Eris confirmed that my vision had actually occurred. According to Eris's account, during the time between the Tangled Shore crisis and the discovery of the Lunar Pyramid, Mara Sov was in contact with the Exo-Stranger regarding the approaching intruders. The Exo-Stranger, familiar with the difficulties of recursing time loops, urged Mara Sov to break out of the Dreaming City and move against the intruders. In Elsie Bray's past timeline or timelines, I'm not convinced that she's been entirely truthful about how she moves between times. Would make sense for her to protect her methods of transit given the scale of betrayal she has witnessed. The Awoken never broke Savathun's curse on the Dreaming City, and Mara Sov expended vital resources there, which were sorely missed during the later stages of the conflict. 5. Mara Sov was reluctant to leave her people, but decided, as Eris put it, that it was better to do something than nothing, even if that something was the wrong way. Mara struck a deal with the Exo-Stranger. The Exo-Stranger would provide data that a future Rasputin had used to track the intruder ships, and Mara would provide the raw paracausal power that Rasputin lacked. Eris was involved because Mara had recently extracted her from Crota's abandoned throne world and felt an emotional debt to Mara over past service regarding the defeat of Oryx the Taken King. This was fortuitous. 6. Mara Sov exploited past traffic with the Nine, as well as her own personal experience with the intruder's stealth capabilities, to disperse an array of synthetic aperture mass growl observatories, coordinated by AICOM XBLK, and possibly other deep-orbit AI systems. The observatories used future technology provided by Elsie Bray to localize an interloper ship near the dwarf planet 136199 Eris. Eris Morn was not amused by this coincidence. I induce she was actually quite disturbed. 7. Mara Sov refused to deploy any Awoken Fleet assets or fallen mercenaries in the confrontation, and even excluded her own Techeuns from the planning. Eris Morn suggests, with what I view as some protectiveness, that Mara Sov felt it was time for the burden of sacrifice to fall on her rather than upon her citizens or pawns. The journey to 136199 Eris was very difficult for Eris Morn. Mara Sov had charged herself with some metaphysical quality salvaged from Oryx the Taken King, which made it extremely difficult for Eris to tolerate her presence. Mara Sov was reticent and snappish, probably lingering trauma from her death in the similar battle at Saturn. Whatever transpired between them remains private. 8. Eris Morn was unwilling to precisely describe the encounter with the intruder. It did not react to their presence as they matched orbits. Mara Sov went on EVA and at one point removed her suit. I believe, but I'm not certain, that Mara Sov either contacted or entered the intruder. Whatever happened next led to Mara Sov's death. It is unclear to me whether the intruder was at all damaged or whether the debris field I saw on the surface of 136199 Eris was related to this encounter. 9. Eris Morn recalled Mara Sov from her throne world by hive ritual, which required both women to confront Savathun and Dulin Karu at great personal risk. The two then descended to the surface of Eris to explore the wreckage there. There was an incident. It may have been an attack or an accident caused by volatile debris or by interaction with 136199 Eris's frozen methane surface, and Eris Morn was badly wounded. Although Eris Morn has techniques to survive in hostile environments, they were disrupted, and she was exposed to near vacuum. Mara Sov deployed a shelter and treated the wounds in what I interpolate was a moment of reconciliation and perhaps genuine tenderness between them. Eris Morn attempted to show me the scar, although I declined. At this point, concerned that they might not survive to make a report, Eris Morn imprinted a log of her journey on a fragment of the debris and transmitted it to Luna via hive manifold, along with a compulsion for any lesser hive to bring the fragment to a guardian. This is how it came to me. 10. I am left with more questions. Was the presence of the debris field on the surface totally unrelated to the ship in orbit? If it was related, did Mara Sov destroy it? And if so, why has she not shared this capability with us? Faced with the skepticism and distrust of so many Guardians, a distrust that has persisted despite Elsie Bray's reports that in multiple possible futures Mara Sov died fighting alongside our forces in the final reckoning, surely Mara Sov would want to advertise her victory. If she did destroy that pyramid, was it a one-off event that she will be unable to reproduce? Perhaps she has to physically contact a pyramid to destroy it, and the pyramids have now rendered this impossible. Or perhaps she approached in the disguise of Oryx the Taken King, a disguise which is now compromised. Mara Sov remains a difficult and inscrutable ally. And so this is how Mara came to fear, and this is how she came to know the rage at the heart of the Witness. It is the one thing that remains clear for all of us. It is the thing that we can see even more clearly having seen what happens when someone within the Witness's orbit starts to challenge its need for control. Take a look at what happened to Callus after all.
complication. Our hold over the veil has been temporarily loosened.
You fear loss, Emperor. Your fear brings you pain. We know pain. Our purpose is its end. You have no purpose. Because you fear to seek one. That fear is your failure.
My failure! My failure! I have fed this force with vicious subjugation, battered down the gates of our enemies, and seized our glittering prize. Why? Because I wanted it! You hold the universe in your grasp, and all you can think of to do with it is...
Secure the veil. We will create the link.
Infinite apologies. The veil is yours. It will be done.
If we're going to find out who the witness is and how to stop it, understanding this rage may be the key to our deliverance. We need to answer key questions. What caused such anger, and how can one being hold onto it for so long? But for now, we are left with those questions, and with no answers. Only the lingering dread that accompanies the Queen of the Awoken. And that will be our video for today. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed, go ahead and leave a like. If you want more Destiny lore content, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But, as per usual, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Perodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.